doing our best is not enough. We have to change. We can become the best at doing the wrong thing, and change doesn't happen. The mission of this masterclass is that by the end of this video, you can say, I can change. And it is not so hard as I thought. If you want to achieve greater things, bigger than you fear, then today's masterclass is exactly for you. We have to remember that the invisible runs the visible. We see ourselves smaller than the vision that we have. There are so many gifts that you already have, which were given to you freely. And if we forget about them, we start to take so much control through fear and extreme ambition, trying to fill that void. You've got to know what you're driven by and make sure that those drives are not old. We also have to learn to update our drives. No values, no integrity, no future. Just remind yourself that life is short, and how do you want to spend the next 15-20 years? Oh, you're gonna have very fast some great answers. Mindset is the ultimate result of this changing process, where you become capable of setting your mind, not letting your mind to run all over the place, but to set it onto something. Doing our best is not enough. We have to change. Otherwise, we might become the best doing the wrong thing. The invisible runs the visible. The way you manage your desires and keep them in check, and the way you set your mind, control your thoughts, these are the two engines which are going to orchestrate and direct your actions. Become smaller than you desire, bigger than you fear, humbler than you imagined, more useful than you believed, and much happier than you thought. How do I say it? Doing your best is not enough. You have to change. And I know there are two categories of people. There are those who say that doing our best is enough. Eventually, I will change. There is a problem with it. We have to do the right things for the right reasons. But if we are focused on the wrong thing, we can become the best at doing the wrong thing. And change doesn't happen. And there's the other category of people who know that they have to change, but they're confused. There is so much to change. I want to change this and that, and the way I behave and think and manage my thoughts and my mindset, communication, sales and business, and the way I lead my team and myself and my life. There's so much to change. And sometimes they start to think that it is so hard to change. And I want to promise you something, that the mission of this masterclass is that by the end of this video, you can say, I can change. And it is not so hard as I thought. This is my promise to you. So if you already know that there are some things that you have to change, if you're a solopreneur, maybe you have a small team, or you're about to start your business, or you have started your business, and now you start to realize that there is so much that I don't know, and it is so hard. And it is hard because we don't know. But once we know how to, then it is not so hard as we think. So because I've been through this problem, through this confusion, when I want to change, but there is so much. Is this something about me? Is it something about my actions? Is this something about the way I think or feel? Or maybe there are too many emotions or too many thoughts, or maybe I'm not a good business owner. Maybe I'm not a good leader. And it's constantly these thoughts are overwhelming. And I struggle to find a framework that could help me, and it helped. And then when I shared it with others, and when I saw that it can help so many great people to organize, to structure this process of changing, I said, let me share it. So if you want to achieve greater things, bigger than you fear, then today's masterclass is exactly for you. I will provide to you a framework, and I will teach you how to use it, so that you know where to start, where to look, so that you don't start to put all things together, and then when there's one thing to change, you say, oh, I have to change everything. Sometimes might be the case, but very often that's a reason that we use to overwhelm us even more and more. So with that being said, welcome to Exploraself MBA. master wisdom and leadership for business and life. We try to squeeze as much wisdom as possible from our experience, and you maybe have experience. So if you find during this masterclass that you have something that you want to add, you want to make it better, maybe you have an experience that taught you something, feel free to share in the comments below. And now let's dive in. Changing sometimes is not so hard as we might think. And I said it in the beginning that what we don't know, we start to think that it is hard. But once you understand it, it's going to be easy. So let's dive in, and I want to encourage you to grab a piece of paper and maybe your notepad and take notes, because I'm going to have some questions for you. And in this way, this change will start right now. So then you can know how to use this framework for all the changes that you want to implement and have in your life. And I know it might be a little bit confusing about, is this the right way? Or is this something that I really need? Well, there are not things that are this way and only this way. So feel free to adopt it, to change it according to your preferences and according to your needs. And question everything. Don't follow it as a strict rule that this is the only way. And I know that you're going to question it and you're going to use it for your best. I want to bring these 4 stages before we dive into the framework. Some changes are about you as an identity. Some changes are about your actions, the way you work, the way you apply systems, and how to organize your modus operandi. And there are some things that we have to change about our results. What do we want to have in our life? Maybe something about you, more courage, more boldness, more wisdom, or something that you want to achieve in the physical dimension. You want to have a different quality of my life. And there are changes which are related to the becoming. Who do I want to become? What's the impact that I'm looking for? So whatever you are busy thinking, or you really would like to change, try to find in which of these 4 domains that change that you are looking for falls in. Is it something about your identity? Is it something about your actions? Is it something about what you want to get? The results are not matching your intentions, or you achieve them, but that's not what you're looking for? Or is it something that you want to change in the way you have an impact in your team or in your business, into the world? Is something that you would like to become? So once you start to reflect now about these 4 domains, I want to add one more thing, that the becoming and the impact, that's something a little bit special. And I'm going to share something at the end of this video, which is more connected, not to your identity or to the way you work or the results or the quality of your life or the growth of your business that you're looking for. But it's about the transformational process. It's about the transcendental dimension of all these changing process. So there is something special about this 4th domain. So try now to answer for yourself one thing, and maybe you already have one. Maybe you exactly know what is that thing that you want to change. Try to identify for each of these domains, one thing that you would really like to change. Something about you, something about the way you do your work, the way you grow, you try to grow your business, or the way you try to apply what you have already discovered and learned about yourself. Or is it something about the results? You're not content, you're not satisfied, fulfilled. You don't find it meaningful enough, some of the results that you have in your life. And one thing that you would like to change when you look into the future, when you look really far about the impact that your business is going to have into the world, or something that you would like to become. Not right now, but further. It's a long-term vision. So identify one thing that you really want to change for each of these domains. And once you do that, you're ready to move forward. All right. I know that you're participating, so I believe that you're going to answer with one thing for each of these domains. before we look into the framework, I also want to add one more thing. There are spiritual things and there are physical things. There are things that we can measure and there are things which are not tangible. They can be interpreted, experienced, and they happen within you. So we have to remember that the invisible runs the visible. So to everything that you want to see or measure, there's the counterpart into the invisible dimension. For example, if we want to have a conversation, if I do change my skill of listening to you, that's something invisible, that's something within me. That is going to have an impact into the tangible, into something that you also can experience or perceive. It's something between me and you already. So it comes into the physical world. You can measure my skill, but it is influenced by something which is invisible. So that's why during this, in this framework, there are going to be two levels. One is the spiritual and the other one is the physical. And each of these two levels or dimensions are a reflection of each other. All right. So just to make clear that you understand exactly what do I mean is, look, there are ingredients, there is a recipe, and maybe it's a group of people which would like to enjoy the food. Let's take just this example. So if you look on the physical, then you see ingredients. There is a recipe which you can read, you can write, you can remember, memorize, and share. And there are hungry people which are going to enjoy this food. So this is the physical aspect. But there is also the other dimension. There are the lands which we don't see when we have our ingredients on the table. There are experts which have spent time and creativity inventing this recipe. And there is life happening while we're enjoying this food. This is spiritual. It's about feelings. It's about experience. It's about connection and growth. So to everything, there are two dimensions. One is the physical and the other one is spiritual. And our framework will have the same two dimensions. All right. The invisible runs the visible. Let's try to enter this framework. Let's get ready through this framework for the framework, which I'm going to, 4 frameworks during this masterclass. All right. So here is the framework that I will teach to you today. So we learned in the beginning, there are 4 domains, 4 vertical domains. There is the identity, the being. There is the next one, which is about the doing. The third domain is about having a vision or a purpose in the physical dimension, or meaning and mission, which is within the spiritual dimension within you. And there is the fourth one, which is the transcendental one, is learning to enter this changing process, looking at the in becoming, whatever is the change that you are looking for. Hypothetically, imagining that you have already done it, who are you going to become? Or what is the impact that you're going to have into the world or into your business? What is this going to lead to? But we'll talk more about that right in the end. So we have on the lower level, we have the spiritual, and on the upper level, we have the physical. So that we're going to go at the same time with the spiritual and the physical from left to right, maintaining these 4 domains. All right. So let's talk about the most important, the foundation of our changing process. So if there is something about you that you have already identified and you said, I know I can do better. I know that I have this thinking about me that I'm not good at this, or I will never get good at something else, or we will have so many fears because we see ourselves smaller than the vision that we have. And sometimes we fall into this trap of, because of the lack of understanding of what makes us us, we fall into these doubts, and fears, and then we start to spend so much energy because we lack the basic knowledge about who we are. And I'm not an expert telling you how the creation of, and the growth human happens, but for sure I can share with you some bits of wisdom, because helping hundreds of people to change and to see themselves differently, I started to realize there are some patterns, there are some things that I've been through, and now there are so many people are going through. And that led to the formation of this framework. So if there is something that you want to change about yourself, then let's look at these 4 pillars of our identity. So let's look at the first thing on the physical world. The inherent gifts, or realizing that your identity, it's not what you think and what you doubt about yourself. Your identity is already showed to you, or they are already given to you. You already have clues about what you can do through the inherent gifts that you already have. So here we are in the domain of self-discovery. Let's put it so. In the doing, we'll get into self-mastery, and then we'll get into self-growth. So think about these 4 pillars into the identity as the self-discovery journey in the following 5 or 6 or maybe 10 minutes. So the question that I want you to ask yourself is, have I acknowledged myself everything I've received and got freely? Because very often happens that we want to improve the way we work, the way we do things. We want to change the way we plan, the way we apply our creative thinking, our strategic thinking. And sometimes we start to think that our value is showed or measured through all the things that we accomplish and through all the things that we can get done. And we might fall into this trap of thinking that if I want something more, it's because I don't have it at all. And what I have is absolutely not valuable. But when I do achieve XYZ, then I can have some reasons to think that I am more valuable. But there are so many gifts that you already have, which were given to you freely. And if we forget about them, we start to take so much control through fear and extreme ambition, trying to fill that void, because we forget about the things that we have already got freely. And this is one of the greatest things that you can think about. Have I acknowledged myself about everything you've got freely? Because if you don't acknowledge yourself about all these things that you've got freely, then we might try to change everything around it, but at the core, your identity is poor, and your identity is based on luck, that I'm not good enough, I don't have any gifts, and everything I have to work hard in order to prove to myself that I'm not what I think I'm not. And this void is very, very risky if it's not cleaned and organized. So what I want for you now to do is to start to write things, at least 10 or 20. You can get to 100 or even 200 things that you have got freely. This is going to bring you so much clarity about your identity, that you already are so gifted, and you have to pay some attention and invest some time into exploring that area. Now, what are the laws that are already around me at work from which I can learn? Because imagine you get into a place where you're for the first time and you are by yourself. The first thing, what you're going to do, imagine that you get into maybe in a forest. So you're going to look at what do I have? Do I have a stick? Do I have a sword? Do I have something else that I can maybe defend myself? Or maybe I can grab some food? Or do I have, what do I have? So we look within, but you also look around. Oh, there are trees. The sun is going down. Probably soon it's going to be evening. So I need a place where to sleep. So you look around and you look within. So you look at you and you look around. The same thing, it comes when we're leading our business or when we want to change something. It's very important that we look within, but it's also very important to look around. So there are so many laws that are already at work. For example, you can look at some formulas, physics, for example. Force equal mass and acceleration. So if there is a mass and there is acceleration, if the mass or the acceleration increases, then the force increases. All right. So if I want to create a bigger force in my business, I've got to accelerate or increase the mass of my actions. So should I probably do more of something that I already do because the results are good and I like it, but are they not enough? Or I have to accelerate. Maybe that's good, but you're not that you're not only doing enough, you have to increase the mass, but you have to do them more often. You have to build a habit so that you can do it daily. So there are so many laws. I'm not going to go into that, but you can do your own research about what are the nature laws, the philosophical laws, there are spiritual laws. So you can open the Bible, you can open many other wise books, so you can learn a little bit about what is already there that's already working. Successful people have written books. Read something that could teach you. Because sometimes we start to think that we are not enough, but we haven't observed around ourselves what are the things that I can already observe and learn from. So this is about the physical aspect. But now we can look at the spiritual dimension within yourself. Before we start to focus so much about the doing and about the systems and technologies and leverage and everything else, we now into the self-discovery. We are into the identity pillar, right? So in the spiritual aspect, there are drives and values. What are the drives? Have I acknowledged the most driving force within my life? Am I embracing it or running away from it? What's driving you will push you. What does it mean? If we don't know what drives us, because each of us is driven by something different. And those drives, they change during our life. We mature, we change, and those drives also do change. But if we desire better drives, I want to be driven by something greater, sometimes it's very wise to use that force which is created by that already existing drive. For example, you want to cook better. You want to make some better meals, better food for your family. Okay, let's just think about that. Now, if you're driven by creating a great moment for your family, use that, because maybe you're not a good chef, but you might be a good bakery, however is called the profession, the baker. Maybe you're something else, but you're still driven by something. Maybe you're driven by empathy. Empathy is something that you lacked and you really, really appreciate, and you're driven by building and working, creating empathy in your team. Okay, maybe you're not a super great leader, but you might be a great super manager so that you can manage people, or maybe you can create something, a product or a service that is really going to fulfill that desire that you have, which is connected to your drive. You've got to know what you're driven by and make sure that those drives are not old. We also have to learn to update our drives. Sometimes we are driven by something, but that in time, things change. We mature, we become wiser. And something is not fulfilling, and we start to think that everything is wrong, but we don't look at the most important, the basics, which is right here in this domain, into the self-discovery, into the identity domain. So pay attention to your drives and make sure that you're connected to what's driving you. Next one, values. What is morally right for me? What do I care the most for? Why? Why not X? Why not Y? No values, no integrity, no future. Within you, there is already a voice that is guiding you and tells you this is all right, that is wrong. that changes because sometimes we're also attached to some stigma, to some things that this is always right, this is always wrong. It might happen. But we also have to make sure that what we know for sure that is wrong, that we don't do it. For example, if you are a great leader, you know that you have great power of inspiration and you have great powers in order to direct people towards a common vision. But if you're not wise enough, you might slip into the manipulation path. And that's dangerous. That's always wrong. So if you find yourself sometimes that you can easily go into this slippery path towards something what you already know that's wrong, if you overstep it, then the whole process of changing, then the whole thing is going to be muddy. Then you lose your connection with your inspiration, you lose connection to your rationale so that you make sure that you're fighting for the right cause. So ask yourself now, if you want to change something or you don't like the consequences or the situation where you are, ask yourself, have I overstepped my values? Because I can assure you that 90% of our problems sometimes and some individuals are because they overstep their values. They know what's wrong and what's right, and they overstep it and they think that doesn't really matter. I can get away with it. And because of that, confusion is going to be all over the place. So these 4 pillars needs to be worked, needs to be explored so that your identity is aligned. What are the gifts that I've got so I can leverage my work in the next stage that we're going to go into? Am I observing? Am I looking around? Looking for laws which are already at work, the law of time, the law of gravity. These are things that we can learn from. Because if you look from a bigger point of view and you look at the big picture, then you can really change and become very fast somebody else. What do I mean by that? You can be very focused on to something and you know that you have to change something, but you know exactly. Just remind yourself that life is short, and how do you want to spend the next 15, 20 years? Oh, you're gonna have very fast some great answers. You'll say, definitely that doesn't really matter. I gotta focus more on this or on that. So looking around at the laws which are at work and learning from other people is essential. But within, we have to make sure that our drives and our values are aligned with those gifts. Because I might be gifted at communication, but if I don't respect my values, then I could use those gifts not for the right cause. Alright, so here is the first domain. So if you want to change something about you, look at these 4 pillars and ask yourself, where in which of these 4 I have probably missed something or I have overstepped something and I haven't paid enough attention. So now you know where to look. And once you find it, you can start working on it. And this will change the whole process, the whole framework, which we're going to learn now in the following minutes. All right, so the next domain moving forward are the doing. Now we come into the domain of applying and remaining aligned with those values, those pillars which we have already discussed. All right, so sometimes we think that the more we know, we can somehow avoid the work. And work is the most seducing trap is thinking that work can be avoided. Probably this is the most important key in the whole framework. All right, so what do we have to talk about work? Again, back to changing. Happens very often in my experience that a business owner will spend days and weeks thinking and planning, hypothesizing all the scenarios about the strategy that they have in place, the efficiency of their systems. But when they do come to a conclusion, but that's hard, that will take too long time, and still don't have a better answer, and they try to invent it out of nowhere, just so I can avoid doing the work. So ask yourself, am I sure that I'm not trying to avoid to do the sweaty, bloody work? Because sometimes change requires some work. And whatever you decide that can be done better in your business or in your life, once you come to a conclusion and you checked that conclusion, you've got to test it. And in order to test it, you've got to do some work. That's why try to, what I've shared with you in the beginning, try to make sure that you know where to look. Am I avoiding to do the work? Because I already know, I've already come to some conclusions and I know what's the work that requires to be done. But let me spend some time doubting myself. But let me doubt a little bit more my strategy. But let me doubt a little bit my vision. But let me doubt a little bit, am I driven? Do I like it or not? And because we don't want to do the work, we start to doubt everything else. And we think that we have many problems. Rather than reminding ourselves that we also have many solutions. On the physical dimension, we have the principles. What are the principles? Ask yourself, is my work leading to the enrichment of my wisdom chamber that I have within that will change my work style tomorrow? What does it mean? That means whatever I'm going through every single day and all the experiences that I'm building and creating and I'm going through, do I squeeze as much wisdom as possible out of it? Or am I just confusing experience with chronicles? Because if the experience that you've got until today, and you've got a lot, I'm sure, it's not squeezed, it's not analyzed so that you can extract some principles, some wisdom out of it, that's not experience, that's just history, chronicles. So let's not confuse that maturity is having a long or multiple experiences. Maturity is knowing how to extract wisdom out of that experience and implement it today so that I can get something better tomorrow. The work and the principles are the practical aspect of the domain of the doing, of the creating process that you have in your life and in your business. So once you make sure that in your identity, things are all right, you know what you're driven, you respect your values, you know your gifts, you're paying attention to the wisdom around you, to the laws which are at work around you. If it's all right there, then don't overspend too much time there. Move now to the next domain, to the doing, and make sure now that you find where is that little change, that little thing that you may want to adjust. And this domain, not all over the place. It needs to be structured, and do not allow your emotions to lure you into the more I struggle, the more I worry, the better solutions I will find. Because this is a trap of this overthinking and this perfectionism, which is both are very can be easily misunderstood or misplaced or misinterpreted. Perfectionism is sometimes let me do something better of something that I haven't done yet. And I'm not gonna do it because it's not at the level of that quality that I'm looking for without accomplishing the previous vision. That's La La Land, that's 𝐌𝐸𝐫𝐞, that's imagination, that's not perfectionism. Probably somebody is a little bit lazy rather than using the excuse of perfectionism because I like it to be to a certain quality. It's tricky. It's tricky, and we have to be very careful. And emotions sometimes can help us to go into that rabbit hole, into that trap. Now, let's look at the spiritual, the invisible part of your work. The invisible is your heartset and your mindset. What is this? A mindset. Let's look first at the mindset. Many people think that mindset is something that one is born with, or one just becomes a genius overnight. Now I don't have a great mindset, but if I read 5 books, then I'll have a greater mindset. Mindset is the ultimate result of this changing process where you become capable of setting your mind. Not letting your mind to run all over the place, but to set it onto something. Our minds, our mind really likes to think. And that's the mind's job. And if we start to hate ourselves because our mind really likes to think and look for thousands of scenarios, we're on the wrong mission. That's what exactly your mind is good at. But what we could learn is to, how can I set this power of my mind and connect it with my drives, the desires that I have, I want to accomplish, and with the goal, the result that I want to accomplish for myself. And in the between, you put your mind. Please, mind, go and do all the work you like, because I know you're great at thinking. Rather than trying to tame the mind and trying to convince our mind that is something wrong with it. No, the mind does what the mind does and is good at it. But what you can do is to set your mind towards a direction, and that is mindset. So again, let's try not to go into that direction where we start to hate ourselves and we want to change something about ourselves, when again we lack the knowledge about what mindset is, for example, where that work needs to be done. So I really hope that now while you are listening to this masterclass, now you start to visualize, okay, there are things about me, there are things about how do I do, and there are things about what do I want to get. But we'll get to that in just a second. One thing I wanted to share with you about the identity. You know, in the Bible, there is the story of Moses I was just reading the other day. And when God tells him, look, I have a mission for you. I want to send you to do something. And Moses said, who am I? Who am I? Who am I to do that? So, and before that, we read that he was working with his father-in-law, and he was taking care of the sheep of his father's-in-law's sheep. So he was not doing his business. He was do something good. It's seemingly. I'm not saying that's exactly so, but that's the feeling I get. So he was a little bit lost. Now God tells him, look, I have a mission for you. He says, but who am I? Who am I? And then he asks, there are like verses one after another. I found approximately 7 or 8 moments where he constantly asks and doubts himself and says, but what can I say? What should I say? But what should I tell them? How do I present you? How do if they ask, what's your name? What do I say? So he's really into questioning constantly himself. But there is another story of Saul. If you read the Acts in the New Testament, there is Saul, and Saul was very, very, oh my gosh, he was ambitious. Oh, he knew what he wants. But he was on the wrong thing. And he became his best, but he was focused on the wrong thing. That's another point connected to that thing. Doing our best is not enough. We have to change. Otherwise, we might become the best doing the wrong thing. So, the difference between Moses and Saul is that Moses was a little bit confused about his identity, but not confused. Maybe he didn't know. He lacked just history. That was the situation. So we're not blaming. We just can look and see and state and see. So he lacked a little bit of understanding about his identity. On the other hand, Saul, he was very sure about his identity, but was the wrong one. And you see that in both cases, we might get lost. One is fighting for the wrong cause, and the other one is taking care of his father-in-law's sheep. Great thing, no doubt about that. But within him, there was a great leader, which he became afterwards because of that intervention. All right. So here's the thing, that sometimes we start to think that we have to change so much about ourselves. But if we are confused about our identity, then it becomes so confused. It becomes so overwhelming. And then we start to think that everything is wrong. That's why the first pillar, the identity, is the most important. And of course, for me personally, it's very easy. I know where my identity comes from. So for me, it's much easier. And if you struggle with that, then I invite you to go to Exploraself.com, and there is a program, Hack Your Mind Before It Hacks You. So this is the first step. That's not something super and extremely advanced, but it's a program that will help you a little bit, at least to see. And I will share there with you, and the program is free, by the way, and I share with you the laws and principles and secrets that are going to help you to detach from your mind and start to realize like, oh, all the overwhelming, all the doubts and all the thoughts, that's not me. That's something that I'm engaging in. But who's this me? You'll get more about that if you go to exploraselfmba.com, hack your mind before it hacks you. Now let's go back to our framework. So here is the doing. If in your identity you're sure what you want, you know what you want, you know what you're driven, but you struggle into achieving it, make sure that the doing pillar, the do, this one that we have already done, is also clear. But a couple of words about the Heartset. Heartset, do I have the awareness that my desires are pleasure-oriented? Am I taming my heart's desires or taking them as fuel? Check your heart, control the mind. Check your heart. Don't suppress those desires. Don't hate them. Check it. Keep it in check, because it might be very tricky too. And control your mind. Don't tame it. It's a wild beast, our mind. And it's the best scenario when we learn to control it rather than to suppress it and to start to think that our mind is gone crazy and it's not good for anything. So about the Heartset, the last thing I want to share with you is when you have a desire that's really burning, and sometimes we might use those desires as fuel. They're very volatile. They might be very high and then very low, very high and very low. That's why relying on your mind's, on your heart's desires, it's not always the right thing. Just take that in consideration. Is this something that I want? Is this something that I'm passionate about? Is it something that I do really care about? Or not? Because if it's not, then probably your mind tricked you along the way and made you to believe that that's something that you would like to, but it's actually deep down, you know that you're not really connected to that. So make sure that those desires are not suppressed, but you check them. And you make sure that you listen to them, but you also don't allow them to take control over your whole actions. The upper chamber, the upper room, the physical. Because remember, the invisible runs the visible. So, very simple. Becoming capable of controlling your mind and keeping your heart in check. These two are the two engines that work together and are going to define everything you're about to do. If your mind tells you that this is too big, it's too hard, too complicated, you're not going to do what you've set your mind to do, what would like to set your mind to do. You're not going to aim bigger. You're going to lack courage and boldness because your mind is tricking you. On the other hand, if you let your desires to take control over you, then all these desires are going to push you a little bit sometimes to overstep your values and are going to increase in their emotional experience. And then you're not going to respect the principles that you have already set for yourself from your experience. You know, principles is extracting a belt according to your experience. And if your desire and the spiritual aspect, your desire is boiling and is volatile, then you forget about the principles in the upper level, in the physical world, right? So you have to realize this thing. The invisible runs the visible. The way you manage your desires and keep them in check, and the way you set your mind, control your thoughts, these are the two engines which are going to orchestrate and direct your actions and the principles that you build from your experience. Whatever is that thing that you would like to change for yourself, if it's in one of these four, make sure that in your Heartset and in your mindset, you've got clarity and you know that, okay, I've got the mind and I've got my heart. I have the emotional aspect of myself. I have the logic aspect of myself. Am I aware of these desires and am I controlling my thoughts? Because if here is an issue, then everything else becomes, because in this whole framework, if this one thing is blurry, then the whole thing becomes foggy. Moving forward, hey, here we have so many things we'd like to change. I want to have this, I want to have that, I want to have this for my life, for my business, for my employees, for my family, for myself. We have many things here. Translating those desires which are boiling in your heart, they have to be translated through the work and applying and improving the principles from the previous domain. Moving into the third one, that needs to be connected. Have I built a vision out of those desires? And when you look at the vision, what's the world impact your endeavors will have? Are you willing to put your life on the line because of that vision? Because if your heart and your mind and your principles and your work and your identity is blurry and there is lots of confusion, we don't even have the power to imagine that vision, to go after that vision that we would like to. And sometimes we start to focus so much of the changing force about the vision that we have for ourselves. And sometimes we lower it, we change it because we don't believe it. Why? Because your mind is controlling you. Your mind, the mindset is the spiritual aspect and the doing pillar, right? By this moment, I really hope that you already have the framework right. You visualize it, you see it. So sometimes we don't go for the right vision because we fear it. Why? Because we haven't taken control about our minds. Not always, we can't always do that, but at least to know, to spot, and to know how to control it. At Exploraselfmba.com, you can find many other programs which are going to help you with all of these archetypes, all of these dynamics, so that you can start to become better at spotting where is this change that I have to make so that the whole framework can start to run smoothly. The vision needs to answer this question. What is the world impact of your endeavors? If you could succeed right now at everything that you have set your mind to, what is going to be the impact into the world? If you want to, or if you start to think that changing your mind is going to help you to build a better vision, it's a little bit different. The mind stays in between. If you want to use better your mind and control your mind, set a greater vision so that your mind has a direction where your mind should aim and look towards. Here's a great tool for your thinking process. And in order to set a great vision, ask yourself, what's going to be the impact? And if that makes you happy, then go for it. Purpose. It's still on the physical aspect. It might seem that spiritual, but it comes from above. But a purpose is, why is the vision important for the world? What's the purpose of this which I'm working on? Me becoming better. What is going to be what's the importance, the value of the purpose of this work for the world around? Why the world should care about what you do? And is this the world going to need your vision? What is the purpose of whatever you're looking for and you want to accomplish? And make sure that you've got the right answers and that you're happy with them. Because if you just focus on your desires, then you're just focused on yourself. You're just focused on what you want and what you need. And without a vision, without a purpose of what you want to accomplish, then the fuel is very limited. And at the first obstacle, we are very tempted to give up. We get tired because we don't have the vision. We don't see the purpose of everything that I want to accomplish. So rather than fighting little changes, sometimes it's the case that we have to look at the third pillar and make sure that we've got a vision and we know the purpose of that vision. Into the spiritual domain, we have the meaning and the mission. That's something personal. It's your spirituality. Why do you specifically see sense in it and not in something else? I call it the rage of values. I do so much care about this or that, or you really care about a group of people in society, and you really value that young people have better bikes, or they have better clothes, or you really care about pregnant moms to have something better that could be very useful for during their pregnancy. You really care because maybe you're a mom and you say, oh, I really care that others don't go through what I've been through. Or maybe you're a man and you say, I really care so that the fathers can have a better experience with their kids. And I just can't stand when a father wants to have some fun with their kids. And in our community, there is not a great place where a father can have fun with their kids and other kids. And you really can't stand seeing that this thing can take place. So you see meaning in it. It's like, oh, that's so meaningful to me. You want to write a book because it is so meaningful to you, the story that you've been through, or maybe there is a concept, or maybe there is a story that it's a fiction story, and you see meaning in it because you know that if somebody else is going to read it, they're going to be more inspired, or they're going to see life differently, or they're going to have a beautiful voyage. And you see meaning in it. If we don't see meaning in what we do, then something else is going to find its meaning in what we do. And then comes the moment when we feel a little bit lost and we say, I've done great things. I accomplished great things. I controlled my mind and checked my heart, and I made sure that the quality is good, and I worked 20 hours a day my whole life. But somehow it's not meaningful. Well, if it's not meaningful now, hardly it's going to be meaningful later. Here's a good tool to use. If it's not meaningful now, hardly it is going to be meaningful later. Now, how much of it and how big it can be, that's another conversation, but it's got to be meaningful to you now. Even if it's small, even if you're at the beginning, you got to see the meaning for yourself at this stage before you get to the next stage. And to the spiritual domain within you, the second element is your mission. If you could fight for something, what would that be? Something that if you don't fight for, might get worse, and you can't stand seeing it getting worse. So now it's not that it's just meaningful for you, but now you say, you know what? I'm gonna set myself on this mission, adjusting this thing, solving this problem. And once you got it, if you didn't, then you've got to spend some time and to find it. And again, even if you're a solopreneur, even if you're at the beginning, even if you're about building your business or planning your business, figuring out the direction, what you want to do, mission is extremely important for life and business, both. What am I going to fight for? What am I going to spend my energy and my time for? And I'm going to set all my energy, my focus, my mind, my heart, my desires, my work, my principles, and sacrifice part of what do I really care about. I'm going to set all this potential into this mission, solving this specific problem because it is meaningful to me. You see, meaning and mission, they go hand in hand. And this is the spiritual domain or dimension. When you look forward into the present and forward to what do you want to have in the future? What do you want to have, the qualities of your life that you want to have, or for yourself, or your personal qualities? Whatever you're looking for that you want to have, before you becoming, you just want to have them. You want to see them within you. These two are going to help you to set your changing process for something that you want to have, but it is also meaningful, and you want to set your potential onto that mission. So rather than getting overwhelmed by the changing process and seeing all the things that we want to change for ourselves, we have to know to which domain are they part of. Is this something about my identity that I have to do some work? Because once I figure that out, I can easily put myself to work and set myself on this mission and working, and I can start to manage my emotions and my heart and direct and control my thoughts once the identity is clear. And even easier when you also have the results, getting things done domain clear as well, which is right this that we have just studied and discussed a little bit. It's been almost an hour. We gotta move forward. All right. You have any questions? Maybe something is not clear. I know I'm scratching the surface of big topics, big things, big domains, but I've decided to put this map that would a little bit organize the domains and the levels, the spiritual and the physical, and to put them into a sequence so that one can start to look at the floors and domains and chambers. I've got to do this first. I got some struggles and some issues here. I got to pay more attention to this or to that. Rather than being all over the place and saying like, oh, I have these 3 or 4 things that I have to change about myself and it's so hard, and past 3 or 4 months I haven't done anything. Because I just have all of these 10 on top of my head and like, I want to change, I want to become better. But how and where to start and where to end and how long is this going to take? All right. Moving forward. Now we get into this, into the 4th domain, and here we're going to unify, to put all what we talked about together. There is always to be the physical and the spiritual aspect to each, or if you are interested, the law of duality, that everything, or the law of polarity, that everything has 2 polars. So that's something else if you maybe want to look and do the research of. Every available tool, gift, way, and opportunity that becomes a possibility for you to do the work that the world is waiting for you to do, and God is willing to help you. This is the physical domain. Everything that becomes available to me, it's given through the gifts, it's given to me through the blessings of everyday life. All of those things are there, and you observe them not because you only can observe them, but because your consciousness now it's a little bit higher, and now you see those things. You see those opportunities, you see those tools, you see those ways. That's why when you see a scenario, even if it's a little bit scary, probably you are already ready for them. Because if you weren't ready, you wouldn't be observing them. You would be focused on something else, but you see them because you already have the tools and the possibilities to put them together. So do not get discouraged when things are complicated or hard, when you think that you can't change or that you don't have to change because you want to avoid a little bit the work. Don't do that. Believe that everything that you see is there for a reason. And if you pay attention to that reason, you're going to see even more. And God is willing to help you if you do what you can do. I struggled for a long time between these 2 aspects. What is my responsibility? What is on me and what's on God? Because there is this and that, and God decides what's the best for me, but also I have to do something. But where's the line which separates these 2? And after I spent so much time in books and reading and meditating and reflecting and doubting and talking and questioning, at the end, one thing is all my personal, this was for me. I'm not saying this will do that for you too. I think this is a very personal thing. Everybody has their own balance and they have to find their, equilibrium. But what really solved my questioning was this picture. If I want a garden with trees, then I've got to go and put the seed into the ground and take care of it. And of course, I don't make the seed to grow. The seed will grow. God made it so. But I can decide how many trees I want to have in my garden, and I can decide also what kind of trees I want to have in my garden. I'm free to choose that. And God is willing to help me and guide me, and along the way I will figure out if maybe those were the wrong trees, or maybe too many trees, or not enough trees. I'll figure that out along the way. But we have the responsibility and the right and the duty to make decisions according to our best understanding, and we're free to do that. And along the way we'll understand more about our spiritual dimension so that we can aim for a better version of the physical experience that we have here on earth. So when we mix the spiritual with the physical, something beautiful happens. If you read in the beginning and in the middle, beside the become, we'll become smaller than you desire, bigger than you feared, humbler than you imagined, more useful than you believed, and much happier than you thought. When we pay attention, when we are wise at putting and unifying these two aspects together as to that degree which is on us. Not everything is on us. There are things which are there and that's not because you've decided or I decided. Your intuition is there not because you've decided to have more intuition or less intuition. Where you have your moral understanding about what's right and what's wrong, not because you're taught, but because you know, you just know. And those things, it's not because we decide, they are given. So there are things which are on us and there are things which are on God. But when we look at the spiritual aspect, is what can I do spiritually from my side? This is still a practical masterclass. It might seem a little bit multi-dimensional, but it's a very practical masterclass. We're not discussing here the spiritual values and how should one decide their spiritual dimension within. The reflection of every inner growth combined with the immense abundance that is around you and the awareness within you, the path on which the process is taking place, the road on which the human seeks the divine. So this is what happens when we start to change, but not just change, but we start to look for those changes which are going to be meaningful and which will allow us to become more spiritual, to become more powerful from within to that degree to which we can, so that we can achieve greater things in the physical dimension. You can use this framework every single time you have a doubt about your identity. Maybe that's about your self-discovery or something about the way you do, plan, create, organize in your business or in your life. What's your strategy? What's your mission? What's your vision? What's the problem that you solve? What's the group of people that you want to help? All this clarity can be organized. It might sound overwhelming, but it can be organized. It has to be organized. And that's what I've done at Exploraself MBA. I provide frameworks and programs that help you to organize and come up with structures so that you know what you have to do this, then you have to do that, and then what you have to do after that, and then what you have to do after that. So that you have a process in place rather than being confused and overwhelmed by so many things. And as you can see now on the screen, self-mastery, self-growth, self-leadership. These are the main stages which at Exploraself we're very focused into providing and helping ambitious entrepreneurs, young people, old people, experienced leaders, everyone that's looking for more self-mastery, more self-growth, so that they can get over themselves and get bigger things, bigger than they feared, so that they can humble themselves along the way, so that they can serve that cause, that mission, achieving that vision that they've set their life and their energy into achieving. And sometimes that's less than what we actually could. And the first step which you can take right now is to go on exploraselfmba.com and take this program, Hack Your Mind Before It Hacks You, which will be a first step, and it's going to be a little bit more detailed and slightly not so rushed as this masterclass, so that you can solve the biggest mystery of how can I control my mind before my mind starts to control me. And you can do that if you allow yourself to change. And this one can be your first step into this new way of changing, so that you can achieve greater things and be so useful for others, accomplishing great things, not only for you, but for the world around. Because you and I can change the world. And that's what we do right now, right here. See you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.